everyone, to Watch Challenge. On each episode, we challenge ourselves to find and watch a film of a very particular type, and then we report back the results to each other and you fine listeners. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I'm Mike Wendt, and this episode's challenge is Cannes Premieres.
Indeed, Cannes Film Festival is about to kick off. If you're listening to this the day it drops, you got a couple days to prep before the first movie opens. So we thought, let's get in the spirit, let's get in the mood here. As we mentioned on the last episode, the Palme d'Or winners was a list of I'm sure they're all great, like all the nominee, like all the winners over the years. I mean, it's the best of the world cinema at that time, but I just wasn't feeling excited about diving into that narrow of a list. So
yeah,
widening out the category with just films that premiered at Cannes was like, well, that's a ton of films. Also, there are some what the fuck movies in that list. I don't know if you ran across that in your research or.
Oh yeah, I mean, like Uncle Boon Me is that's like one of the weirdest movies I think.
Oh yeah,
ever. But it did win the Palme d'Or.
Yeah. Well, I went in a different what the fuck direction. Like I found out doing this research that like Shrek 1 and 2 premiered at Cannes.
Yeah. No, I like actually I read the same thing, but it was like, that Shrek was so well received and received like this huge like round of applause that they were like, if you make a sequel, we will put it in or something like that.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Hey, the French need their joy, I guess,
Well, I was thinking, there's that. There's also the stereotypical film nerd dismissal of like, oh, the French and their appreciation for American comedies has always been a little like, I don't know.
Right.
The comedy is also so subjective. I was like, I don't know. But also, I mean, Shrek was legit like groundbreaking animation.
Oh, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. I mean, and like the writing was sharp. I mean, as the sequels went on, that's when you get a little bit, it kind of milking the cow a little bit, but
I think the most, there was one I when I was researching in 98, that horrible Roland Emmerich Godzilla movie premiered. And I was like, okay, so if you're a big enough studio, can you just buy a spot at Cannes to be like, here's the what's the rationale for debuting Godzilla like 97 or 98 Godzilla at Cannes?
Yeah, no, it's a good question because I mean, I know this year like they're showing Top Gun Maverick.
They are?
I think
Oh wow.
Yeah,
okay.
like they're doing a big and I will always butcher these for the big cross-set premiere, where Tom Hanks will probably or Tom Cruise will probably land on some kind of helicopter, on the red carpet or something.
He should parachute down and land. Mr. He's so obsessed with stunts. That would be amazing.
But I do know like one of the Ocean's movies premiered, and they love that kind of stuff where they they can get the big stars and you can like you can have everybody on the big red carpet, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that highbrow film that is in competition, which is usually more the highbrow fare.
It is, that's true. And I love some lowbrow stuff myself, so I'm just it's just like there's this part of it too, like I'm thinking about for this episode, I was like, well, what was like my first memory of Cannes? Like when did that first appear to me, like in the ether as a film geek? And it's just my first impression is always like it holds a place of like the best of contemporary world cinema, as a showcase. And then you're like, but then also there's Godzilla or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean that is contemporary world cinema. It just maybe isn't something I like. Doesn't mean it's bad, but I think as I was thinking about it, I think my first realization of Cannes or like, hey, I should pay attention to this was when Pulp Fiction won the Palme, which would have been 94, had to have been that. Because I remember that being like the cover. I was a Premiere Magazine subscriber at the time, I believe, or Filmmaker, one of and it was like, holy shit, this like movie came out of nowhere and won the Palme over here at this big illustrious film festival. Then we had to wait till that fall for it to come out. And I feel like, I mean, that was the first time I probably heard of it before, but that was the first time I was like, I need to pay attention to this festival. If these are the movies they're putting out and given Best Picture to, I need to start watching these movies when they come out.
Yeah. And I know I'm a few years younger than you, but I do remember seeing the VHS tape of that. And I think in big, bold, bold font on the top of that, that iconic image of Uma Thurman smoking a cigarette.
Oh yeah.
You see Best Picture Cannes
Right.
Film Festival,
Yeah.
and I don't even know if they called it Golden Palm or whatever on that, but it was just, Best Picture,
Right, right.
and
Yeah.
that's, yeah, I mean, as a young person, when I saw like the VHS tape, because obviously I wasn't old enough to see it in the theater, but that's what kind of I think is the same that got my
Yeah.
attention to what, and I'm sure for several years after that, I still didn't know exactly what it was.
Oh, yeah,
But
same here. Because there wasn't, like, an internet to run out to and, like, look up past winners. I had to, like, okay, do I check for other video boxes or try to find, like, a Video Hound? They had, like,
right.
previous award winners or something in that book somewhere, but I do
Yeah.
remember somewhere discovering that again, I was like well, maybe I was at film school by then, but I was like, "Oh, the French were really appreciative of David Lynch before we were here
Oh,
in the
yeah.
States."
And I think, like, the Coen brothers' first movie,
Oh,
was
yeah.
something that, Blood Simple, I think that's where they got their breakthrough,
Yeah, I think you're
before,
right.
you know, making it big out here and stuff. It's just, I mean, they obviously, it is like one of the longest running festivals and pretty much
Yeah.
most prestigious, I would say.
Oh, for sure, I think so too. Yeah, I looked up didn't realize it went all the way back. It started in '46.
Yeah.
1946, I was like, "That's a solid run." There was one year where
Yeah.
they didn't because of the May '68 protests and everything, solidarity move, but other than that well, probably COVID was a little I mean, that didn't
Oh,
affect
yeah.
everything,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
no fault there. Do you keep up though? Like, when you see like, oh, something's gonna premiere at Cannes or like something wins the Palme d'Or or the Camera or Dior or Best Picture or I'm sorry, Best Actor, Actress or anything?
I would say, I mean, I'm a very faithful reader of IndieWire, and
Mhm.
even though sometimes I don't always agree with things, I think their coverage of Khan is so great.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems I'm sure they only have a few staff writers, but they are earning their money that week because they have it seems like they're seeing everything. But yeah, I think I do tend to try to pay attention when the awards are announced. And
Mhm.
thankfully these days, a lot of those con winners, I'm sorry, I keep saying, I want to say the Ohio version, can
Can. Yeah, no, I'm
uh
with you.
con when a lot of those winners tend to play not too long after the festival, where it used to be everything would come out in December or
Yeah.
something. Now, like, some of the things, like the film, we talked before we started recording, A24 has this movie Men,
Mhm.
by Alex Garland, that's going to be premiering, and it comes out May 20th in theaters. So, it gets a slot at Con, and then it plays in the theaters just a few weeks later. So, like, if it does potentially win anything, it has that buzz to like ride off
That's
into, and
true.
maybe get some butts and seats. I don't know, maybe beyond us cinephiles, if does it hold a lot of weight, I don't know, any, maybe as it used to or something. But when surely when I see something like, Punch Drunk Love, I think, Paul Thomas
Oh,
Anderson
yeah.
won Best Director that year,
Mhm.
and so, that was something that I was already excited for it. That was like right
Right.
my peak first year of college, but now seeing that it won that, made me really excited to see it.
Right, right. As if you need any more reason to get overhyped for
Right.
a new PTA
Exactly.
movie. Now I have another reason.
Yeah.
I remember just spending a good number of years managing an art house theater, or just working at them too. There was one down in Dayton that I worked at when I was in college. That there was this luster of like, oh, we finally there's a distributor in America for X movie, whatever that
Yeah.
won the Palm or something, one of the top like directing prizes or an actor actress like especially if it was like a known one, like if a I don't know, Joaquin Phoenix or Nicole Kidman, mainly American actors, sorry. But, if they
Sure.
win the best actor prize, like that movie's we assume would get a bump in the theater. And for some reason in my head, I always remember 2006, The Wind That Shakes the Barley, the Ken
Oh,
Loach,
yeah.
like that. I believe that won the Palm that year. And then, I don't remember when it came to the art house I was working at, but it came like, oh, it's the Palm winner. And it was like crickets, like nobody, I mean, there were people coming out, the diehard, the cinephiles that are in Cleveland here that, are committed to, the theatrical experience and everything too, were out for it. But it went to like one of the small theaters within like a week and it clearly could have just started there. And it's like, oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So it really depends, I think, to connect on the American side, at least here. even in an art house or repertoire, like locally here, the Cinematheque or something, it takes a certain one to connect with like butts and seats also.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there and I know, like, yeah, at like the Cinematheque or Cedar Lee, it's like they will hype it in like the weekly emails to try to get more people to say like, hey, this won all these things,
Right,
and
right,
obviously that always connects with me, but the general audience, they're like, oh, award, who cares,
right, right. Well, like we said,
but
even though like you have a Godzilla or what was another one I looked up, like Dirty Dancing premiered
right,
at Cannes, like not exactly highbrow stuff. I love Dirty Dancing more than Godzilla, obviously, but like
yeah,
not highbrow stuff, but it has that whiff of just like, oh, that's one of those hoity-toity kind of
yeah.
awards. You know what I mean? Like it's different than I'm trying to think of another like Sundance Film Festival would probably have a better track record at the art house box office in America than the Cannes Film Festival Best Picture.
Yeah. Actually, one other one I just read that premiered at Cannes was
Mhm.
Cliffhanger.
Oh man, now we're talking.
I know, like I wonder if that got like, at least a 20-minute standing ovation.
I don't know.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm hoping in my head.
that is one of the few Rennie Harlan films I will rewatch anytime.
Yeah.
That guy does over the top action like nobody. Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, that'd totally be like a time travel fly on the wall. Like I want to just be sitting in that audience watching that movie,
Oh, yes.
watching that couch, just like scenery. But well, so as we're looking stuff, did you have any honorable mentions that were con premieres that you wanted to shout out?
Yeah, I mean, one of the one of the things that I was actually very surprising to me that was a con was a con premiere, and one that it's just I tend to revisit every December. Creep Show, George A. Romero's
Oh,
Creep Show.
that was one of my honorable mentions too. Good
Yeah.
taste. Yeah, Romero, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, and I think that movie holds up. I mean, just because
Yes.
of some of its humor and all that. I mean, it's one of those things that that's why I just like to revisit it a lot. I mean, obviously we've already talked about it, but probably Pulp Fiction is like,
Yeah.
if for those of the uninitiated who don't know anything about con, I mean, that is probably the standard to say, like, this is a thing that broke there and then took over
Hmm.
the world,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
um
Very much.
and then I would also just the most recent winner, Teton, I think is highly worth a watch. It's not for all tastes, um, but it was one of those movies that it kind of floored me when I saw it. Just a few months ago in the
Mhm.
theater. I was just pinned to my seat. It was advertised as this, the most disgusting movie or something you'll ever see, and I I found it to be not that at all. Like, it was actually quite moving at
Mhm.
parts, surprisingly. And I know that it did when I think Spike Lee was the juror,
I think
and
so.
he
Yeah.
he kind of had a gaffe where he announced it at the beginning of the ceremony instead of at the end.
Oh, I forgot about
Like,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
like, usually you have to lead up to that, and he just kind of let it
Blurted
out.
it right out.
But but yeah, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't, it didn't even make the Oscar shortlist for
Mm-mm.
foreign film,
Right.
but I don't know, it resonated with me for whatever reason. Something about cars, I guess.
I gotta bump that up. I haven't watched it. It came streaming pretty quickly,
Yeah,
and I still haven't clicked play on that one.
I
I will
highly
have to ditch that.
suggest it.
Yes.
Yeah, but probably wait till the kids are
Oh,
asleep or
okay. Yeah,
something.
not around.
How about you?
Well, I agree on Creep Show, so I'll skip that honorable mention. I had one from 1991 that made a huge impact on me when I didn't watch it in 91. I found this on VHS like later in the 90s, but I had no idea until doing some research that like, oh, this premiered at Cannes. And that was Boys in the Hood by John Singleton
Oh
in
yeah,
91.
yes,
Another RIP director, actually.
yeah,
I mean, Romero was elderly. Singleton went far too young.
absolutely.
Yeah, that one had a real strong impact, but also putting Boys in the Hood is from 1991 in that context of like the indie boom that's like
Mm-hmm.
just showing its face a little bit here in American independent cinema, and man, that movie will knock you on your ass.
Oh yeah.
That was quite a hit, and one I haven't thought about in a really really long time. But when I was looking up, what stuff had premiered at Cannes, which actually, as we were talking about before we recorded, it's hard to find like a master list of. I mean, you can get like the award winners. You just Wikipedia list them all in order. But I was like,
Yeah.
any that premiered at Cannes, okay, I guess I'm just cobbling together my own. Did that one premiere? And I look it up and see if it did or not. But I ran across L.A. Confidential from
Oh
'97,
yeah. Oh my
which has got
gosh.
a really. I ran across it actually in a story about how like the studio didn't want it to premiere there, but like Curtis Hanson and some producers were like, no, we need to get this in at Cannes, and then it had quite a. I think it screened out of competition, I want to say, but it had quite the the rave reviews started with Cannes, which I was like,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
I I'm not necessarily in favor, but I guess that's sort of how the industry works of using a festival launch as like the start of the PR and marketing campaign. I mean, if it
Absolutely.
works out for you, but I was like, I think LA Confidential would have found its audience anyway, but that gave it more the air of like, this is an important film, and all
Yeah.
that.
And when that came out, that was, I mean, it was the same, unfortunately, the same year that Titanic came out. But I feel like if Titanic didn't, that probably would have swept
I think so.
the Oscars that year.
I mean, if that what is it that I was thinking of as the Crash theory, that how the Oscars love celebrating LA movies and
Yep.
stories, like my Crash one, like, well, LA Confidential clearly would have won then.
Oh, definitely.
It wasn't, Titanic year.
Yeah.
So what was your actual pick, Mike? What's your actual Watch Challenge pick as a con premiere film?
Yeah, so I went super modern
Okay.
and I picked something that premiered at last year's festival.
Oh, okay.
So this it premiered in the Un Certain Regard section. Um and it is by the director, and I had to phonetically write out how to say his name, but Coco Nada.
Okay.
So he directed a film a few years ago called Columbus. That was a really like just kind of beautifully kind of thoughtful film.
Mhm.
It's a lot of like there's a lot of pauses. It's a very atmospheric movie, I think
Yeah.
you would call it. So this movie is called After Yang, and this it's a very very unique film. It stars Colin Farrell, and it also stars Jodie Turner Smith, who she was in a movie that filmed briefly here in Cleveland called Queen and Slim.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and it also stars Haley Lou Richardson, who was in Coco Nada's first film, Columbus.
Yeah.
So the plot of it is basically it's slightly set in the future, and they've adopted a young Asian girl, and per all the adoption agencies now,
Mhm.
typically you also bring in an artificial intelligence robot, basically to be a sibling to the adoptee.
Okay.
So in a very like interesting opening credit sequence, the family are all dancing to this, like, they're in this kind of like competition,
Okay.
and you notice right away that that the robot whose name is Yang is kind of off. There's just something that's not quite in sync, and this is where it kind of kicks the story into it, where pretty much Yang is defective now, and they have to
Oh,
Colin Farrell then spends, the majority of the runtime trying to figure out ways to fix Yang, because there
okay.
is now, like, for the daughter, there's a huge emotional connection. And as he starts to go down this like path of trying to fix it, he discovers this little camera that has all of Yang's memories, and he starts to realize that Yang, while being artificially intelligent,
Mhm.
um, had emotions, had people that had a love interest, had all these different things. It's a really, I I was actually quite moved by it. And it's like it's one of those things where it's a movie about a robot at the end of the
Right.
day, and but I think once again, this director who I'm hoping like he doesn't like fall into like a Marvel big studio
Oh,
movie
same here.
trap.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it would be nice for him to make money, I'm sure. But but I just am I'm very impressed with this director. The way how he controls the frame, the way how he works with the actors is
Mhm.
just, and it's these movies that they're kind of quiet. There's a lot of,
Yeah.
once again, there's a lot of thoughtfulness behind them, and it nearly made me tear up, nearly.
Nearly.
But it was just who knows, maybe on a rewatch I'll just be a blubbering mess. But
'Cause you know
but
it's
it
coming now
really,
too. You're like, "Oh, it's gonna be that
yeah,
scene."
it really leads to a satisfying conclusion. And now this movie, it premiered last year, and then
Okay.
A24 either acquired it or they helped produce it, but they put it out there straight to Showtime
Oh,
network. So
okay.
like it played in a handful of theaters and all that, but so I'm a little afraid that now, and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, there's probably a good majority of people who have Showtime or whatever, and they can just easily watch it. But I don't know. I have this feeling like because it's already been put out there on
Yeah.
Showtime, that it may not get the watches or the respect that maybe it deserves. But highly suggest it after Yang.
Nice. Yeah, it's, another one of those, like, separate larger conversation, but, like, the whole, like, the film's just lost in a digital release schedule, like, on a streaming platform. Like,
Yes.
I keep forgetting I love Richard Linklater, which I'll mention reason why I just made that connection in just a second. But his new one, Apollo 10 and a half, was on Netflix, and I keep forgetting it's there because, like, I don't see any critics talk about it. I don't see any friends talk
Same.
or no, and I was like, "No, I need to go watch that. Why do I keep forgetting I need some buzz." There's no buzz anymore.
Yeah, no, I have the same thing because like I've scrolled past it several times and I'm like, I should definitely watch this. I should definitely watch this. I'm gonna watch Jerry Maguire again or something like that. Like, why do I do that?
Yeah. Yeah. That hit me extra hard just because, like, the last 2 movies I watched were rewatches because I just wanted to experience that movie again. I was like, "I have all these new ones I need to watch." I'm like, "No, I'm watching All the President's Men again." That's, so wait, help me out real quick again, the pronunciation.
uh
Kogonada?
Coco Nada.
Kokonada. So his name first popped up to me, well, obviously with Columbus, his first feature film,
Hmm.
you referenced earlier, 20 probably like 16 or 17, I think.
Yes, 2017.
They mentioned, a lot of reviewers were mentioning, that he's an essayist, like a video
Oh
essayist.
yes.
And then when I was looking up stuff that he had done, I'd seen several of his video essays on Criterion editions, also
Yes.
one of the topics we just discussed on a previous episode. And so like I went back and watched, I think it was a Wes Anderson one, and I swear there was a Richard Linklater one, but I cannot remember which film. I want to say it was like on the Before trilogy, maybe, or something.
Yeah, I know he definitely did one about Kubrick that
Oh,
is
Kubrick, yeah, yeah.
in 2001 specifically, I think. And I've watched it. It's like maybe like 2 minutes long, but it is
Right,
like
right.
it's so eye-popping and
Yeah.
everything. Like he just knows how to capture that. And it's kind of inspiring, for somebody who started like that and then ends up foraying into features. I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think so. And because he's very, especially like where you said the way he handles like frame itself and framing
Yeah.
his scenes and his images, especially Columbus. That's the one I've seen of just like the architecture in that, like just the way it's shot.
Oh
You're like,
yeah.
why don't they just always shoot architecture this way? This is how you do it.
Yeah, I think I mean, I don't want to yammer on my pick, but like I just think like where so many people, so many younger filmmakers,
Mhm.
it's all about moving, 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 must
Right.
cut fast. Like, he goes these long takes and
Yeah.
just, very, very thoughtful. It takes a lot of patience to do
Yeah.
that. And yeah, that's why I think he's one to watch for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So which film did you end up picking?
I was looking specifically the shout outs that we did, and the honorable mentions I wrote down, and some of the ones we were making fun of, the Shreks and the Godzillas or whatever. I was like, well, shit, those are all American films. Khan is a world, a survey of
Yeah.
contemporary world cinema. So like After Yang is a great pick because like that's a whole wild mix of different cultures and different things coming together. So I did want to limit mine to like specifically something that wasn't an American film as my pick.
Sure.
And then as I was looking through to see, actually, it was after I looked up LA Confidential and how like the producers didn't want it to go there or whatever. I was like, I wonder if there's like, I kind of wanted to find one that had a crazy, maybe like story about like being at con itself.
Yeah.
Then it occurred to me, I remembered the art house theater I just previously mentioned, working at the Cedar Lee for years. There was a movie, I don't even think it ended up playing at the theater. Now that I think about it, I think I saw it at the Cinematheque. I couldn't wait because in 2011, the 2011 edition of the Cannes Film Festival, Jafar Panahi's film "This Is Not a Film" premiered there, and it popped into my brain specifically because I remembered he was on house arrest at the time. I didn't actually look up to see what he's doing now. I don't know if that's been lifted or not.
Yeah.
But the story about "This Is Not a Film" was that it was smuggled out of Iran. So this is an Iranian filmmaker, part of the Iranian New Wave, wildly respected, hugely influential filmmaker. He smuggled his finished film, This Is Not a Film, out on a flash drive hidden inside a cake to the Cannes Film Festival. And then they announced, I want to say it was like 7 or 8 days. It was pretty close to when it was going to happen. The festival itself. And they were like, oh, we've got the new Jafar film is going to be playing here at the festival this year. I was like, what? I got to see that movie. That is a crazy story. This dude's on house arrest. He shot it with like an iPhone and a digital camera. I should have looked this up. I feel like he maybe had a co-director somewhere in there. He shot it in like 4 days over like a 10-day period or whatever. And honestly, it ties perfectly in with After Yang and Columbus and Kokonaga in general, because it's kind of it's a video essay, really. I mean, it's a documentary officially,
Yeah.
but it really has the feeling of like a video essay, and it tackles all these different. First of all, it's a really fun and easy movie to watch. If anybody's worried about a foreign film or something, it's not. It's
Yeah.
just really into film. It's definitely one you should watch because it tackles the idea of like the power of censorship can have to silence art, but also the power art can have to respond to censorship. It dives into like abuse of state power because part of the, I guess you could call it sentence that, or no, it was a sentence. Like he had a 6-year prison sentence and a 20-year ban from the government from filmmaking, conducting interviews, writing. I don't know how you enforce this, but I was just like, it makes a movie in response to getting that kind of a political sentence. I was like, yeah, I need to watch this one. This is really, really fascinating.
Yeah, it's kind of like the ultimate like fuck you to
Absolutely,
to Iran.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Fuck you, smuggled out inside a cake.
Right.
One of the most prestigious film festivals in the world. But it's also like it's very raw, and also like he didn't make it as like a pretentious like 20-year-old. Like he is a world-renowned film artist at the time that he made this movie, and he's got thoughts on the power of art and the nature of art and what it means to create something when your limited resources are like your fucking phone and a digital camera. But also like if you're being monitored at all, you're not supposed to be filming or writing or creating. And I was like, okay, yeah, that. So anyway, yeah, I saw it years and years ago. At that point, well, 2011,
Yeah.
a good 10 years or so. But it's such a great kind of love letter to all those ideas I was just mentioning, and but done in like this really thoughtful. I feel like more like video essay kind of vibe, kind of diary. I remember at the time I was thinking like kind of has like a little taste of like a found footage sort of, but not in the way that we're thinking like Blair Witch or something. Just like sometimes like there's a couple scenes where it starts filming. Scenes is kind of a strong word. It's all in his house, but like it starts up and you're just like, wait, why is he filming this now? And like it like just the way it kind of evolves and you just sort of sit with it. Like you said, it's not quite like the long takes like you're getting in After Yang or Columbus. There are some, and it's very deliberately composed and thoughtful. But then there's like, that's an interesting way to film a phone call with your lawyer, or like so you get some context to it. You don't have to know anything I was just talking about. Although if you're listening to this, you did hear all of that to inform your viewing of it. Like it tells you what's going on within the context of the film itself too.
Yeah, I do remember that getting like a lot of praise, and like I think it was a pretty big thing at this, at the Cinematheque, and I
Mhm.
I know he played some of his other stuff. I want to say he made a movie like something about Taxi Cab
Yeah,
or
it's just called Taxi.
just Taxi. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that one's great too because he did it after This Is Not a Film, and if you look up his filmography on Wikipedia, like, it does the columns, one of the columns is always notes, like, "Oh, they did the oh, he also did, set decoration, whatever." The note on Taxi was, "Made illegally," which he actually has in a few of his movies. So he did This Is Not a Film, 2011. That was, he got banned after the movie Offside came out in 2006 or so. And so, or that's when he was sentenced or whatever. So then in 2011, Made Illegally, This Is Not a Film. 2013, Closed Curtain, Made Illegally. 2015, Taxi, Made Illegally. And then he did Three Faces, which also played at Cannes in 20, like 18 or 9, pretty recently, and won some award there as well. So
I mean, it makes you wonder, like who can make a movie in Iran? I mean, I guess except for Asghar Farhadi or something, like
right, right.
like he seems to be the one like churning out movies, and but wow, I mean, it's just I don't. It's kind of incredible that he still makes these, even though he's not really allowed to, which is ridiculous to me. But
Right, no, absolutely. But then also, I believe it. I just saw his son made a movie. I just watched at this year's Cleveland Film Festival, called Hit the Road.
oh yeah, that was
Yeah,
great.
that's his son, which is just a road trip in Iran. Also, probably going to get him arrested because it has some thoughts on the political structure of Iran right now. But it's also, if you go back and look at if you look at Jafar's filmography, if you watch Offside or The Circle is really good. I think The White Balloon was one of the ones that kind of kicked off the Iranian new wave back in the late
Yeah.
or mid 90s, I think. You're going to watch, if you watch any of them, you're like, oh, these are banned movies. No, 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 no. They're not banned like you're thinking as far as like banned content goes. You could watch all of them and be like, and? Because you're not thinking like, repressive, religious dictatorship would be thinking about it.
Yeah. By the way, for any of our listeners out there, that Hit the Road movie
Mhm.
I've seen is now starting to slowly open up around the country. It's getting like pretty rave reviews. So,
Oh, yeah,
look out for that one. It's pretty
absolutely.
great.
And because also, like, it's hilarious.
Yes.
I just went because I was like, oh, I haven't seen an Iranian film in a little while. Like, I want to see a new contemporary Iranian film. Oh, it's the son of a director I really admire. And then watching, I was like, wow, I'm laughing almost constantly at this movie.
Yeah, that was my last streaming choice. I
Oh, nice.
I had it right at the wire, like it almost expired, but
The
I was glad that I
11:55
got it
mark
in.
on the, yeah.
Yes.
Sweet. Well, Mike, your pick is for our next challenge. Sorry, you're picking the next challenge. So what have you got in store for us for next time?
Well, I figured because it's the unofficial start of summer, let's try out Kids on an Adventure movie.
I mean, nothing says summer like kids on an adventure. You're on summer break. There's no responsibilities. There's no school. Time to get your friends together and get into some shenanigans. I am. Any parameters for that one, or just?
I don't know. I mean,
All in the title there.
it's gonna be slightly tough, I think, because like I've watched so many of the '80s ones, so
Yeah.
I might have to dip a little older for this.
That's a good point. I immediately was like, I'm going to get nostalgic on this one. That sounds. I'm
Yeah,
going to go revisit something. But I was like, no, I'm gonna pick something I haven't seen before. I'm going to make that
yeah,
one of my criteria. But yeah, like, can I go back before my childhood? Like, are there movies from the 50s that are kids on an adventure or something?
yeah. Or I might have to go super new. I don't always like to go super new, but I don't know. Netflix seems to be putting out stuff every week that's aimed squarely at kids. So
That's true. But also, maybe you want to pick something that's good.
yeah,
But
it's
cool.
all
Well,
it's all subjective, Aaron.
That's true. That's true. All right. Well, we will find out next time. Talk soon, Mike.
Have a good one.